Good evening. I'd like to call to order this July 26, 2018 Reston Association Board of Directors meeting. I want to welcome all of those at the table. It's nice to see everybody. It's nice to see you. Some I've seen several times over the month, some I haven't seen since last month, so it's lovely to see everybody. Thank you all in the audience for attending today. It's great to have you participating with the association. And welcome to everybody who's watching us at home or on YouTube. And so we're going to get this meeting started. We have some interesting things to talk through this evening, and I hope you find this informative. To kick things off, I'll also mention one of the directors suggested I make a mention of this. I think it's a good idea. Later in the meeting, we're going to hear about a series of ongoing meetings between Reston Association, the Coalition for a Planned Reston, and the county. And I want to call your attention to info that's now linked to the Reston Association website about transportation. And it's in the Transportation and Infrastructure Projects Overview tab in our website. And it's two documents. One's they're related to the Reston Network Analysis. One for a good overview and an update. There's one called Reston Transport Strategy Document. And the other one is the final report of the Reston Network Access report that came out. So both of those are really important documents that the county has put together. One's a little bit high level and some implementation ideas. One is a lengthy full report of the Reston Network Access Advisory Group's work on transportation, and both are worth a read. Certainly the summary one is worth a skim through anyway. So just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that those are available on our website. With that, I'd like to head to our agenda.
Andy, do you want to mention that you have somebody on the phone?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Sherry. And so for those watching, you may see all the directors, but you don't, because one of them is on this wonderful star phone. So Director Mooney is actually on conference with us today. So Director Mooney is participating. He's not nearly as handsome as he normally is because he's just this phone tonight. But he is participating and will be fully voting on all of our different discussions as we vote on things. So welcome everybody. And again, John on the phone, welcome. So with that, I would like to have us look at the agenda. And is there any approval of the agenda, or would anyone like to move anything?
I move we adopt the agenda.
Okay.
Mr. President, I move that we adopt the agenda for today's meeting with one exception, that we move item 2, July 2018 Legal Committee report from the consent agenda and be placed on the regular agenda before item J.
Okay, so for everyone who hear that, I think we have a director who'd like to move an item off the consent calendar, which we can do.
Second. Point of order, there's already a pending motion to adopt the agenda. That would either need to be withdrawn or voted on.
All right, can we would you
I
mind?
withdraw my motion.
All right, thank you. Sridhar? So I would, since one director has asked for item 2, approval of July Legal Committee report to be removed from the consent agenda, we will do that. And I hear a motion that we approve the agenda with the one amendment that we move item 2 into item J, which is the executive session. And I'd also like to add to that we will allow both parties who are parties to the item 2 a chance to speak for 5 minutes at that point of the agenda, should they so choose. So, with that.
Point of order, will Mr. Mooney accept the friendly amendment?
John, will you accept my amended portion of that, your motion?
Yes, I do.
And do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say. Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, we have an agenda. Thank you. All right. So now we're on to the consent calendar minus item 2, which is now back at item J. So, does anyone, would anyone be interested in motioning to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Okay.
I'd like to move that we approve the consent calendar with the exception to the board minutes where I'd like a correction to be added. Where the member comments, I'd like to add the meeting conduct, specifically state parliamentary procedures.
Okay. Could you just repeat one more time the end of the parliamentary procedure?
I want the section that's talked about meeting conduct to specifically state follow parliamentary procedure.
Do we?
I
have an
accept that,
amendment
I accept
too.
that as a friendly
Okay.
amendment.
I have one amendment.
All right.
There's on page 3, it says Vice President Ganesan left the meeting, but after that it shows that I voted on a motion. 2 of them actually.
So those need to be shown as you're no longer there.
Yeah. So my name should be taken.
So, I think, Tony, are you taking notes there?
I'm sure trying.
Yeah, so did you see that,
So basically, under board motions for DRB, covenants, resolution 7 and 8, under that. I don't think I was there for that.
you're good, but when you're not here, it's hard for us to know what you voted for, right? So,
And I have an amendment as well.
okay.
I actually did leave the meeting. Probably when you started the financial statements, so I did leave the meeting.
You knew they would be such
It says you left.
wonderful presentation.
Right, that's-
It says you left the meeting
Yeah.
after the election.
Yeah.
It does, so
But
we
if
need to
that's not
change
when you
where that
left
is.
it.
Because I did read that it said you left, Director Hebert left the meeting.
Before
and
item G. I think
Yeah,
she was
2E
there for the
shows.
committee assignments.
I thought so too.
Shows you went at 2E. Do you want to change where you left?
No, it's fine where it is.
It's 2G,
I don't
I
actually
think, yeah.
remember.
No, I know I think you left around this. You were definitely there for the committee assignments. I remember that, because you did speak up about.
So do we want
Oh,
to
yeah, that's
move
right,
that
yeah.
to the behind 2G?
Behind F,
2G.
before
Basically
G.
2G,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Tony, could you move that behind F, that Director Hebert, thank you, left the meeting?
Tony, I accept whatever friendly amendments result out of these changes.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else editing for the minutes? All right. Hearing none, we have a motion on the table to approve the consent calendar as amended by the amendments to the board minutes of June 28th. Any further discussion?
Who was the second?
Do we have a second to the?
I'll second.
Julie? Thank you. Do we have any further discussion? Then let's call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. All right, any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. So we're through the consent calendar. I would love to this stage to welcome any members who have comments. It looks like Mike has a sheet for member comments. Thank you, sir. And we have several, so we're looking forward to hearing from you. And I'm just going to read them down in order as I see them in here. And if we need to make a swap around, we can do that. But the first name on the list is Roger Lowen. So Roger, welcome. If you could state your name, come up to the podium, state your name and address, and then an individual will have 3 minutes to tell us what's on your mind. So we look forward to hearing.
This will be a lot shorter. My name is Roger Lowen, 11816 Triple Crown Road, and I'm here simply to make a very brief statement about the issue of water drainage that affects the properties at 11817 and 11901 Triple Crown Road. We moved to Reston in 1988 and have resided at the same residence for the past 30 years. I've come here tonight to tell the board that during these past 30 years, we've never observed any major landscaping change to the property at 11817 Triple Crown Road, which is a property directly across from our home at 11816 Triple Crown Road. If there had been any changes, we certainly would have observed them. And I'm making this statement because I think it's relative to the issue about whether or not that property across from us changes configuration for drainage purposes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your comments on that topic. All right. Next, we have Mr. John Barry. And again, John, Mr. Barry, if you would just state your name, and John, if you'd state your name and address for the record, and then 3 minutes to address the board, so thank you.
Certainly. Thank you very much. John Berry, 11817 Triple Crown Road. I'm the subject of the complaint by Leslie and Marcia Platt at item J in the executive session. I've been a resident of Reston for 14 years. I own a small business in Reston, Virginia. I'm involved in the community, and I'm asking that the appeal be denied by the Platts for several reasons, and I'm trying to keep it within 3 minutes because it's kind of tough. 11901 Triple Crown Road, the owners have complained against us approximately over the last 14 years 6 times. It's in the record that below for every reason from the day we moved in about our erosion, drainage, and all sorts of things. They've complained against our neighbors, the Wassons, the Grubbs, the Dramseys, and you know, this has been an abusive process as far as I'm concerned, and I would ask that the board take action to stop someone from filing a frivolous erosion complaint saying that I changed my property when he can't even tell, when the Platts can't even say when the property grading was changed. You do not want to establish a precedent in Reston where people can go around and say, oh, I don't like this person. They may have changed something 30 years ago, or someone may have changed something 40 years ago, and we don't know, but let's just try and file a complaint. There were complaints filed on erosion by the Platts against us in August of 2006. There was no finding by the RA. In fact, in July of 2009, they filed an erosion drainage complaint against us, and J.T. McConnell, the former Covenants manager, said, no, it's not 11817's fault. It is the fault of 11901, and they cited the Platts for their problem. We tried to resolve this in March of 2014. Larry Butler was kind enough to try and, you know, he was trying to work with the Platts to put in a swale, and we didn't object. We hated the look. It was an eyesore. It looked commercial. But the problem was, I was like, maybe they'll stop complaining against us if we actually have a chance, if we actually agree to it. And we did, and didn't stop the complaints. We got a complaint in January of 2018 for erosion following our attempt to get a door and a light installed in our backyard. So they filed 2 complaints in a row. The other one was dismissed.
We probably need you to have about a wrap-up at this stage.
Sure.
Thank you.
The wrap-up is that there's an easement agreement that the Platts introduced into this, which we were never consulted about. And if this appeal is granted, we will file under the amended deed, Article 1, Section 1.1a, a request that that agreement be voided because the Platts should not have preferential treatment on that easement that's owned by RA. And we would like to ask that you deny the appeal. And we appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, next on the list is Frank Peterson.
Yes, we've been moved to the,
Right,
Yeah,
gotcha. So we'll be moved over to later. So thank you for your patience, and we'll see you in a little while. Okay. Next, we have Bob Perry.
May or may not. Is this about the golf courses?
You can certainly chat about anything that you
Yeah.
want us to listen
Yeah.
to, and we'd be happy to hear.
All right.
So if you could state your name and address, and then you have 3 minutes to chat with us about whatever you'd like.
Okay, Bob Perry, I'm at 11520 Running Cedar Road, Reston. I've been a Reston resident since 1969. The first time I came to Reston was sometime in just after 1964 when the North Course was built. And I went down Route 7. It was a 2-lane road. I passed a tractor and a hay wagon and came to the course. There were not many properties built around the golf course yet, because that was one of the first things that were built. Kind of funny because if you're a dyed-wool golfer, one of the things you have to worry about is when you hit a ball off the property out of bounds. Well, since there was no property, you could hit it almost anywhere, and they hadn't established the out of bounds. So anyway, one of my buddies hit a slice the ball way over out of bounds, and we went up there, and all of a sudden I saw him hit the ball, and he came back, and I said, why'd you do that? He said, well, the lady that owns the property maybe moved the chairs and maybe hit the ball. So.
It's
Anyway.
OB, she can't, yeah.
It wasn't, they hadn't been,
It was not, it was not staked out to OB? Oh.
All
right, yeah. Sorry, yep.
Well, anyway, I played I moved to Reston, and I played the North Course, we called it then, instead of Hidden Creek, for a year. And then in the meantime, they were building the South Course. So on June 1, 1970, the South Course came in being, and Magnus, who was the head of Golf Reston, we need a country club. I want to join a country club. So the North Course is now a country club, and the other course is a public course. Believe it or not, in the membership, we had a golf club, about 300 members. A fellow by the name of Jug Bell from represented the management was the head of it. And, we were the head of the thing. But anyway, we talked about, some of us, of buying the golf course. But none of us had the guts to do it sometimes. So now we're in a situation where it gets sold from one developer to another, and each developer says, you can't hold me to what the other developer said. So we go on and on and on. So the only solution to this thing is to have somebody, some municipality or a resident association, or somebody that's not a developer to buy this property. Otherwise, our grandchildren are going to be fighting this long after we're gone. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the history, that's very interesting. Golf courses were built first.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Perry. Next, Connie Hartke. So.
I just have an image, I still can put on the screen. It's Throwback Thursday. It's right on the screen, you have that little graphic.
Yeah.
Really easy.
And,
So if you could state your name
Yes.
and address.
and
then-
I am Connie Hartke,
Are you-
representing Rescue Reston, so
I mean,
five minutes, please. All right, hold on. And to keep me from, and now, can you all hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, think back to the spring of 2012. We knew the Silver Line was coming, but it never occurred to us that Reston's two golf courses might be anything other than the recreational open space matching the land use designations in place since 1962. Then in the summer of 2012, Northwestern Mutual put their lawyers into action and started an unprecedented attack on Reston's open space. Reston's vision was shaken, but it did not fall. And now here we go again. At 164 acres, Hidden Creek is the largest consolidated recreational open space on the north side of Reston. Reston Town Center is a close walk. Lake Ann and Tall Oaks residents walk there. A retiree who moved to the Harrison Apartments walked over and decided to take up golf in his 70s. The Reston Runners Club starts at a run at Reston Town Center, and they run or jog or walk through the course's Reston Association pathways. What does the new owner of Hidden Creek see? Wheelock sees residential units and streets covering the majority of the space. Rather than viewing through Reston's lens of people living in concentrated housing, walking over to concentrated open space, they envision their new clusters as a close walk to the city, Reston Town Center. Reston is 54 years old. It's only the last 6 of these years that Reston has been forced to consider that the golf courses might be anything other than open space. If we allow these speculators to chip away, they will eventually get it all, save a pocket park here and there. We've had so much new development already, and it is just the tip of the planned development that's coming. This is not the time to concede an inch of open space. Do not swallow the supposition that golf as a sport is on the decline. The National Golf Foundation reports the total number of those playing on a golf course for the first time ever rose to a record high 2.5 million in 2016. Robert Perry, Bob, whom some of you know from past golf tournaments of Rescue Reston, Bob has played both courses since they were built in the 60s, and he wrote to me earlier this week, quote, "Perhaps the best description was that almost all of them were athletic types who had been better than average at some other sport and had gravitated to golf when their former pursuits had tapered off or ended." With Reston's projected population growth and our very active older generation, the number of people wanting to play golf and year-round tennis will increase. We are very disappointed that the Wheelock consultants have not come up with any ideas for redeveloping in their already built areas of the clubhouse, tennis area, and parking lot. Why not dig them deep and build them reasonably high with some housing on top of this new structure to help pay for these improvements? This has been suggested and is, so far as we can tell, ignored. Many have ideas on how to increase participation in the tennis, swim, golf club, but Wheelock is laser focused on how much of the land they can build housing on. To be clear about who we are dealing with, Wheelock Communities investment arm, Connecticut-based Wheelock Street Capital, purchased the neighboring Charter Oak Apartments and just purchased the Hyatt Regency Dulles. Wheelock Street Capital's interests are not the quality of this community 75 years from now. It is return on investment. Don't forget the nature of speculation. Hope of gain comes with the risk of loss. No one needs to be sympathetic to the owner's woes about deferred maintenance, etc. That is not this community's problem to solve. They paid $14 million for a golf, swim, tennis club on 164 acres. Find a way to make what you bought work or sell it to someone who will. Keep in mind the ultimate victory, which is land conservation easements that restrict development in perpetuity. This is what we thought we had prior to 2012. We must stay united and demand no development on the open spaces of either 18-hole golf course. Show a crack and the speculators will pounce. Last sentence, any compromised position outside of the clubhouse, parking lot, tennis area will compromise everything.
Thanks, Connie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Connie.
And now I'd like to call up you will call up the chair of our North Course Committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, yes, so next is Lynn Mulston. So Lynn, if you could, again, state your name and address for the record.
I like the shirt.
Thank you. Hidden Creek.
I saw that.
My
And
name
are you-
is Lynn
Are you
Mulston.
representing an organization or yourself today?
Well, I am serving as chair of the North Course Committee of Rescue Reston. My name is Lynn Mulston. I live at 11472 Links Drive.
5 minutes, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I will not be taking the entire time, but I wanted to first of all say that I appreciate your consideration and your time. And I do have a preliminary report on a community survey that we conducted. Oh, let me pass that around. We are in the process right now. So we did a community survey when Rescue Reston agreed to adopt the North Course last December. And one of our first orders of business was to say, well, what does the community want us to do? So we did a community survey between the dates of April 26th and June 30th of this year. And our intent was to better understand the wishes and desires of the community regarding the open space that makes up the North Course or Hidden Creek Country Club, and garner direction from the community as to what we should be pursuing on their behalf. So one of the most meaningful questions in terms of where we go from here was the second question in the survey. And that the purpose of the second question was really to help us identify where we should be focusing our efforts on behalf of the community. And respondents were asked a simple yes/no question. I want to see Rescue Reston's North Course Committee fight to protect Hidden Creek's land use designation of private recreation use, more specifically to remain as a golf course. 276 of the 287 people who answered this question, or 96%, chose yes. So we clearly have our marching orders, right? So we will be sharing more details of this survey as we move later into next month, and I'm hoping that we will be coming back in September to share a more complete readout. So the other thing that I wanted to do, given these marching orders, we have been assembling to go out and talk with the clusters that abut Hidden Creek and are in that neighborhood. So we've so far presented to about 6 clusters. And I have to tell you that one of the handouts that we do provide is the resolution that Reston Association adopted last December. And I have to tell you that we really do appreciate Reston Association's support of our precious open space with your resolution that was adopted, as I said, in December of 2016. And it also appears in this evening's board packet on page 51. So the resolution reads that Reston Association desires to continue to be a golf course community, and that Reston Association does not support any future grid of streets road connection between American Dream Way and Isaac Newton Square because it will adversely impact the Hidden Creek Golf Course. And I go on to share that this is a standard handout when we go and present to the clusters. And I have to tell you that the clusters are so grateful to see this document and to know that Reston Association stands with the community in defending the golf course. So I want to reiterate to you this appreciation for your support on behalf of Rescue Reston and the North Course Committee. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Lauren.
Thank you. Okay. All right, we have one more member who signed up. So Patty Lenz. Patty? So Patty, again, if you could just state your name and address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to kind of give us your thoughts and recommendations that you shared.
Well, this is quick. I'm Patty Lentz, and I reside in the Wedgwood cluster. At the last Board Operations Committee, I made the following recommendation, and I also put it in writing, and that's why I didn't bring a written statement, but I sent it to you, Andy. At that time, I recommended that the Reston Association change their requirements for the advisory committees in relation to times of service. And for those that are watching, the Design Review Board does not come under an advisory committee. Currently, the term of service is 3 years. And I don't see the reason why it needs to be 3 years. I would like to see it changed to 2 years in hopes to broaden the base of people that may consider serving on various committees for the Reston community. I realize there are people with families, but 2 years is really a short time to do something, and 2 hours a month is not a lot to ask. So I'm requesting that the term of service be changed from 3 to 2, and the maximum, which is stated now is 9, be changed to 8. I was questioning at the time of the Board of Operations Committee I don't know why there was a maximum even as it is. I don't know what the reasoning behind it was, but after I thought about it, I thought that if there is not a maximum, then after 2 years, people may have to submit another application. So to avoid the process of submitting another application by having a ceiling of 8 years, that's a nice long time to serve with. And I can tell you that I am a member of the 55 Plus Advisory Committee. We have lost one member who wanted to stay on but was not able to, and we are going now to lose another member because of the not being able to serve at 9 years, and she wants to continue. So even if you move it to 8, I am requesting that for those members that still would like to serve, that they may be able to do so by submitting an email, possibly without an additional application, and an email maybe to suffice, but I'll leave that up for a board decision. But again, my main request is to change a 3-year maximum to 2 years, to hopefully broaden our base for volunteers and make it to 8 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Patty.
Patty.
Okay. That completes those who signed. Does anyone who didn't feel like signing want to speak for a moment? We'd be happy to hear from you. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item. Thank you so much for everyone who's taken the time to come out and speak with us tonight. It's important for us to hear and be aware of the things that are important to our community, so thank you for taking time. Okay, next agenda item. We already saw our illustrious treasurer, Eric Carr, jump to the podium. So with that, why don't we move to agenda item E, the treasurer's report.
All right, thank you. This is going to be a shorter treasurer's report and budget discussion than we had originally planned. Reston Association had power outage most of the day, and so we do not have in your packets or online right now the charts I was going to use, and I don't want this to be a math.
Item E, Treasurer's Report, Eric Carr.
I'm sorry.
Treasurer.
I have no idea what I just did.
Kathy's robot is now will be taking over your report, Eric. I'm
Alexa, please give the treasurer's report.
I did.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you some broad brush kind of state of the organization. I'm going to give you a broad brush about what draft 1 of our budget is. I'm going to talk a little about our budget process and then off here just to kind of refresh that. And then I'm going to throw all of us in the fiscal committee under the bus, pointing to our August 20th meeting where we're going to do this in more detail.
And for those who have a hard copy packet that they picked up outside, or if there were some, again, and for us, it's all in our Dropbox. It's in the hard copy.
I am going to talk about this page in a little bit of detail right here. This is our June year-to-date financial report. So we're halfway through the financial year. Some top-line numbers. Our revenue is about on target. We're about 2% below where we thought we'd be right now. Our operating expenses are 7% below where we thought we'd be. And so the result of that is we've got about a $500,000 cash surplus right now in the RA budget. We don't anticipate that eroding over the course of the year. In fact, we anticipate that will probably grow a little bit, although there are a couple of expenses that are going to be a little higher in the second half of the year. The takeaway from that, I would say, is that our current budget, we're in healthy shape. Our cash position is healthy. We've got $7.5 million in cash right now on hand. That's plenty to get us through the rest of the budget year. Our labor is up over where we thought it would be. A lot of this is because of our pools, right? We've left the pools open a lot more this year than we did last year. In fact, our pool hours are more than double what they were in 2017. It was hard to predict how many people we would need to do that in the forecast. So we're up on that. But again, I'll point out that even though we're up on the number of seasonal FTE, full-time equivalent, we're still below budget on that, right? And so our pool revenues have come in a little higher than we thought would be in terms of pool passes. The pools seem to have some healthy attendance. Probably not this week, a little wet. But otherwise, we seem to be in good shape. Fiscal committee did a lot of work rolling up their sleeves on Monday about this. This is as I said, this is the half-year point, so this is the opportunity for us to really start taking a serious look at our budget. Early in the year, a lot of things just become timing issues, right? If we haven't got a bill in April, it looks great, or if we paid something early, it looks bad, right? So right now, our budget starts to look a little more like reality, what we think it's going to look like. So this is our first snapshot. And as I would say, the end result is we're up about $500,000 where we thought we'd be. So that would be your takeaway from that. I want to shift gears now, and I want to talk about the 2019 budget.
All right. As we do we want to?
Do you have any questions?
Yeah, so let's.
You want to pepper me with questions on this and then have a second
Before we
round of me?
jump to item F, does any director have a question for Eric on what we just heard or budget issues? I guess I appreciate you bringing, I'll start. I appreciate you bringing that up because again, what does jump out at you is the seasonal FTE 54 to 133. And I know last month we talked a little bit about that being timing, that we hired a little earlier.
We did.
This year than last. And when I poked at that a little bit, I think they said some of that even still occurred, this next month into June. And it sounds like we also hired more.
We're still doing it. We hired more and we're hiring them earlier because the pools are open. So this is just a cost of doing business with our more robust pool schedule.
Okay.
So.
Any other questions on the financial kind of overview we just got? Sridhar, any pokes?
No, this
All
is,
right, no, it's good.
if I have something, I'll do it
Yeah,
offline.
all right. Julie?
Eric, I know you probably don't have this information at
I have every number right here.
right there.
Hit me.
But I just wanted to remind everyone that last summer was a very short pool season because of the change of the Fairfax County school program. So while last year there may have been a dip down in some of those expenses, I would venture to say that probably this year's are not too far off from previous years.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, two things, right? So one, the school schedule messed with us.
Really messed with us.
This year we had a lot of pools open earlier. So that,
Yes,
if
that
you
was a
remember
decision we made.
back last couple of months, that hiring budget got high early because we were hiring, college students who were home to pick up those May slots, right, when the school was still. That's right.
Any other questions? All right, why don't we dive into F and hear a little bit about 2019?
Okay, Alexa, please do the 2019 budget. Still not working. So our off-year budget process, I want to very briefly describe that for you. We go through 3 drafts. The first draft, we ask staff to generate their numbers based on what they're doing this year, mandatory expenses they have to spend next year that we know we have to do. And that may be, things required by the county or the Commonwealth, code changes, things that we know we must do or else. And then that's it. And then to make the projected assessment match up with that and make sure we put the right amount of money into reserves and we pay the right amount of money for all of our expenses. That draft, the fiscal committee saw on Monday night. We spent about an hour and a half with it, kind of really poking and prodding at it. I don't have it for you tonight, as I mentioned, because the power went out. But don't despair, on August 20th, we're having a special board meeting. Fiscal committee and board are going to sit together, and we're going to go through draft 1. So nothing will move forward in this budget until August 20th. This is a chance for the board to take a look at it. We'll get it up on the website. The public can take a look at it, and the fiscal committee will roll up their sleeves and take a look at it from a fiscal responsibility perspective. So we're not missing anything by not having it tonight other than me getting to talk more, which is just fine with me, exactly. So the headline number is that to pay for all the things we're supposed to pay for in 2019, to maintain everything we're doing now, to not take on any new revenue initiatives, it's a $39 increase in our dues. Now that's not the final result, but that's where we start. That's our starting point right now. We've got a lot of things coming up that we're going to have to do, and we've had some expenses that are going up as well. One of the big ones is we thought we were going to renegotiate our lease here in this building, lower the price and extend the term. We've chosen not to do that. Staff thought that was, at this time, staff thought that was the right approach to take. We backed the staff on that, but the result is our monthly rent will be higher than we thought it would be next year. That's the first thing. We are saving money on legal services over what we did in 2017. They'll go up a little bit in 2018, but not anything near what we thought they were in 2017. The health insurance premiums are going to go up about 5%, we estimate. As we get closer to the end of the year, we'll be able to turn that into a real number. Right now, it's still just kind of a guess based on past trends. And so that's where we get to $39. There's some other things we have to do. We're required to do a reserve study. We've got to upgrade one of our software packages because it's no longer supported. There's one person on staff who knows how to use it. It's not a smart business practice for us. We've got to do some dechlorination systems for our pools. There's a couple things like that that we have to do. So we start with that $39, and that's where we're going to start our conversation with you, the community, amongst us on the board, with the fiscal committee, and figure out where we go from there. So stay tuned on August 20th when we all get back together. The process going forward, we've got 2 more drafts of this budget. There'll be a second draft of the budget that comes out of that conversation after our August meeting with fiscal committee and after talking to all of you. We'll start to make some decisions, and by that third draft, which becomes our final budget for 2019, somewhere in the October-November timeframe, that's where we as a board will have to make decisions about, do we use some of our cash surplus to buy down that that dues payment? Do we defer some of the expenses we're going to have to make, that sort of thing? So there's a number of conversations we're going to have over the next few months to really turn that number into some reality. And I don't want to open up a conversation about what we think that number should be yet. I want all of you in the community also to be involved, as well as the board. But that's where we stand. Questions?
If it's okay, I'm going to parrot back what I thought I heard, just to make sure.
Absolutely.
On a different word. So that this first draft, we see that it's about $800,000 different than the current year.
That's right.
And I thought I heard basically you say about half of that, around $400,000, is 2018 kind of issues, maybe lower revenues, a little bit higher expenses than we thought. And the other $400,000 was some new initiatives, some new software, some other things that need to get done. And so that's kind of our starting point. And now we as a team, working with the community, and if we just did that without any kind of more guidance, and the number fell out because it fell out, it would be a $39 increase in our assessments to make that happen.
That's exactly
but now
right.
we're at a stage where we can have discussions, we can prioritize, we can figure out guidance to decide if we want to do all those things, or if there's different ways financially to hit some of them, or if there's some things we want to prioritize out of the budget.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Can I make a quick comment? So thank you for this. So I haven't looked at the actual budget as yet, but one of the things that would push this up is I have to look at what the capital project schedule is next year, because all that has an impact on what the dues changes are going to be.
Right.
So let's dig into it, and then we'll find out where the changes are.
Yeah.
And I think this first draft budget does give a good indication of the transfer to repair and replacement fund, and based upon what it is. So
And
when you get a chance to look at that, I think it
And that
does
is not
start
the
it.
same every year.
No.
So that's the reason why sometimes you'll see it going up and down, but so you have to.
Right now,
look
draft
at
one
the
is
numbers.
basically 3.1 million to the reserve fund.
In this budget, yeah.
Just based on our past projections.
Okay, so this year we, just so everybody knows, we transferred 2.9 million.
Yeah.
So straight away, you've got a 200,000 delta just because it's gone up to 3.1.
What we're required to do by our resolution. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so there are multiple things that drive these changes. We'll have to dig into it in detail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 3088171 is the current draft one number for being sent to reserves. And it's that's over 2996. Yeah, so it's up about $200,000.
We lose John?
He doesn't like the.
Like the
I don't like that report at all.
He heard 39 and hung up.
39, forget it.
Don, are you
Yeah.
still there?
Yeah, I was cut off momentarily.
Okay, got it, thank you.
I'll start from the beginning, it's fine.
Eric said he will have a 3-hour conference with you directly after this meeting to go over all of the details of the finance.
Your
So
mileage may vary.
please be prepared for that. Yeah, so again, John, we're just at the point, and Eric was kind of taking questions on budget, 2019 budget area. Is there anything, John, while we have you, anything you want to chime in on the budget?
I missed only about 15 seconds. I have no further questions right now.
Okay.
Bueno.
He just muted me.
Heard your voice and hung up.
Eric?
So Ben, anything, as a member of the fiscal committee, any thoughts or things you want to bring up at this stage, or wait till August when we have the next meeting?
I think Eric touched on the important points that we talked about on Monday. And we have a working session within the fiscal committee that we are planning to have, which will be a good precursor to the August 20th meeting, where we can dig in deeper into the numbers and everything that we have prepared in draft. And that's what we plan to do. So this is going to be an iterative process. And this is what you're looking at is what the staff has gone in and presented as their wish list. And it's now for us to see what we can do in the best interest of the organization as a whole.
We'll be looking at more than just operations, right?
Yeah, we look at the revenue side as well.
I'm in the capital side.
We look at the capital side, revenue and expenses, yes. Yeah.
Just a little thing, if I'm not mistaken, the budget calendar still is not listing October 3rd, the North Point listening session.
Not? Uh-huh.
I didn't see it, so.
We will be having that, it's just
Yeah.
top secret right now. We'll try to get that declassified and on our calendar.
Thank you.
Yes.
Out of your day job.
Yeah, this is your evening job. Any other points for Eric? Hearing none, we thank you, Treasurer.
Yep.
And it sounds like we're going to have an exciting August, so
Yes.
sharpen your pencils and
Right.
lead us through it, sir. All right. Thank you, everybody. And again, apologies to the team. As Eric said, this building and all the adjacent buildings had a power outage for most of the day. It came on luckily in time for us to hold this meeting, but the PowerPoint, et cetera, that had been worked on didn't get transferred to the right audio-visual situation to be able to present it tonight. It is in our packets. The board has it to review. As Eric said, he will be working with the fiscal committee to get some of it up online for people, the general review, but it could not be shown tonight. So thank you for your patience with that. Okay. All right. With that, we'll move on to item G, Hidden Creek Country Club update. We'll take that as I'm going to open on that a little bit and give just a little bit of introduction. And then I'm going to ask our focus group members on this situation, which I'll talk about more, Sherry and Sridhar, to talk a little bit about their perspectives on where we are with the situation. So,
Mr. President?
yes, sir.
Could I ask that everyone carefully speak directly into the mic so I can follow the conversation more exactly?
Sure. So again, just so that John can hear well, if we could all get near our microphones when we speak.
Even our own mic should do
No,
it.
he's here. This is delayed. When you're at home, this is a delayed mic.
So, John, the speaker that you are closest to for the phone is near me, but someone like Kathy is a long way away, so we'll just have to ask Kathy and Ven to really speak up and speak this way when they speak so that you can hear better.
Thank you. And I'm including in my request those making a presentation at the podium.
Okay.
Right, that's going to be tough at the podium. But right now, no one's at the podium, so you are in good shape. All right, so to start off, I just want to preface this by saying this tonight, our topic on this is just a very introductory point. We are looking to have a further discussion on this point at our September board meeting. We've invited both Wheelock, the owners of Hidden Creek, to attend our board operations committee meeting in September, and then possibly after that present at the board meeting in September. We've invited Rescue Reston to do the same, to attend the BOC meeting and then present at our September board meeting based upon the outcome of the BOC meeting. So we are planning to have a more lengthy time on this in about a little over a month's time. We wanted to get some introductory remarks going tonight just to make sure our heads get around this very large topic that many members actually spoke of tonight. So thank you for coming out. One of the things I wanted to talk about was something I think Lynn read to us. I wanted to make sure that we were all aware of any resolutions and constraints we had as we start all this, Lynn discussed our resolution of this board from December of 2016, which does, and I'll repeat again what Lynn said, now therefore let it be resolved that Reston Association desires to continue to be a golf course community, and be it further resolved that Reston Association does not support any future grid of streets road connection between American Dream Way and Isaac Newton Square because it will adversely impact the Hidden Creek Golf Course. So that is where this board stands per resolution from 2016. We also wanted to take a look at our Reston Master Plan document and see where that stood in terms of this topic. And as you can see in your board packet, the plan references the golf courses several times. The Reston National and Hidden Creek Golf Club golf courses are planned for private recreation use, more specifically to remain as golf courses, and then for further guidance, and it goes on to the Reston Master Plan. But that's kind of, I wanted to make sure we all knew where we're starting from. I'm not saying we couldn't move somewhere else, but that's where we are today, and I think it's important to ensure that we know our starting point. With that, do we have that one pager that we can show up on the screen, or no? Is that, Mike, is that something we can do, or the one pager from the packet?
The resolution?
No, the one page
summary
that
of
the
the
summary of the
options.
different options, I think would be a nice thing to show up on the screen if we had a chance. Is that
I thought that was actually for Kelsey's presentation, but let me just pull it up.
this one?
Yeah, that one?
Yeah, that's now.
That's now, yeah.
So, basically, just to, as we get that up on the screen, Wheelock, the owners of the new owners of Hidden Creek, have several months ago started a series of focus group sessions. I'm going to ask Sherry and Sweetheart to comment on that in just a moment because they participated in some or all of those sessions. The main point there being, and I know there's another one yet to come, so again, we wanted to wait till that whole process had finished before we spent too much time on this, but one of the points that they shared with us, that if people can see in their packet or up on the screen, they presented these focus groups with 4 different options just to start thinking and discussing. Option 1, they called do nothing, which was basically leave it as a golf course and don't change anything. Option 2 was a lower level of development and then some lower level public space improvements. Option 3, medium development and some medium public space development work. And option 4, higher development and then higher public amenities work. And I think they've asked the focus group to think through all those, have discussions, and kind of see where we go at that stage. So with that, I'd like to ask Sweetheart and Sherry, on whatever order you want, if you wouldn't mind just chatting for a second about your experience there, your perspectives at that stage. Yeah.
Sherry, why don't you start?
So I would say, just generally, not talking about the specifics of each meeting, that Wheelock has done a very good job at trying to educate or persuade, whichever way you want to look at it, the community that all these things have to be done to that site area in order to make it more environmental and more public and more all these things when actually it is already public and it is already environmental. It's been there since 1962, as we just heard. And so there's been a lot of presentations, a lot of people flying in from all over the place, experts in the field, whatever field they're in. They've even used Bob Simon and his vision to talk about how this should be envisioned as something different, which I personally find insulting when he created this planned community to start with. They clearly are not in the do-nothing mode, or we wouldn't have options 2, 3, or 4. I think some of the things that they're envisioning as positives are additional walking paths and additional this. Well, we already have that. So to everything you just said, Reston Association has already stood their ground on where we felt with golf courses. I mean, we've made Resolution 6, that was what, almost, well, 2 years ago. The master plan is pretty clear. And so a developer that comes in and thinks that all of that means nothing needs to think again. I mean, I think Reston has already made it clear where we stand. I don't know how we can be any more clear. So I think the general sense of the focus group, the community members of the focus group, kind of like to Lynn's survey, wanted to say a golf course. I mean, that's my sense. There are people that are kind of open to listening, and that's great. I think everybody's open to listening, but it doesn't necessarily mean that means we want to change anything. I think I think that they are skillful in throwing out things that they also hear are important to Reston, like indoor tennis facility. Well, there is already one there, that they could make that public. So that's not necessarily a sell. Make it, like I said, more walking paths, more ingratiating. Well, I've golfed at that course many a time, and the public that aren't golfers use that course a lot for all kinds of things. Frisbee, throwing things to their dog, sunbathing. Eric, you missed that when we had the lady that used to sunbathe on the course before your time.
Right.
Yeah, you remember her, Julie, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So it already is a community diamond. I personally don't think you can make it any more of a diamond. Now, could the clubhouse be improved and all those things? Yes. Could they make better business decisions on how they might use the golf course? Maybe it's semi-private, maybe it's other things, but that's a business decision on the part of Wheelock and the golf management folks. I also agree. I don't think golf is a declining sport. I know I own a golf course, and we're seeing more and more memberships every single year, and that's up in northern Maine. That's not even down here in the DMV here. So, just personal anecdotally, I can say I don't buy that at all. So, I think it's what they said. I don't really have any more to add than what Lynn and Connie have already presented to us. They've been at all the groups. Larry's also been at the groups as well. I just think...
How many people, I'm sorry to interrupt, but how many people about are in these focus groups? 10, 20,
I
50?
would say about 20,
30?
19,
There's like
15 to
10
20
people at a
people,
table. There's
typically.
usually 4 tables.
It's a cross-section. I can talk to the process a little bit.
It's high 20s, I think.
So many of them are there,
What I
people.
remember.
And again,
Yeah.
Sridhar said he'll talk through the
I'll
process a
through
little
the
bit for
process
us.
just
So.
A little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, so, I mean, as a general sense, I think that's my sense, if that's what you're asking for. In introductory, I think, you sent the master plan. I'm glad you looked at that and told us what the master plan says. And, our own resolutions say what they say. They've certainly seen the work of Rescue Reston on the other course. If you're going to come to Reston and buy a golf course that has all of these already embed restrictions on you, it's on you. I mean, it's a golf course. Now, again, they've bought the community around it. And if they want to build around that, I mean, that's a different story and that's a different conversation. But the golf course is a golf course.
Okay.
Sridhar?
I agree with what Sherry said, as well as Connie and Len. So I'll try not to repeat those things. But first, from a process perspective, the members it's probably about 20, and Connie, Len, please chime in if that's not the right number. But it is a cross-section of people from Reston. So you will see community members like us, as well as Reston Association. You'll see RCC. You'll see the Chamber of Commerce. So you see a variety of people being involved, as well as the people that live around the golf course as well. So you do see a cross-section, and if you take the community's pulse, the community as in the people that live around the golf course and people that are not associated with organizations, typically you would say that they would all have picked the golf course.
And
is
these
what we
people
need-
were
need that to be.
selected by Wheelock?
I'm sorry?
For the focus group, they were selected by
Selected
Wheelock
by
to
Wheelock.
participate?
It was by invitation.
Okay.
That is right. So the process was really, the membership is like that. So the first meeting was all about, walk into this meeting, be open to looking at different ideas and tell us what you like. Bring us a picture. Get us pictures of the things that you would like to see in Reston, right? And put that on a board. So we did that. And then we talked about that later on. But before we launched into that, they had a few experts, golf course experts, development experts who came and talked about how golf courses don't make money. and how everywhere people are changing the way, the golf courses are run, and they're making it more fun, reducing the size of the golf courses, introducing more fun things to make it more wholesome. So it was all about viability, right? And the challenges around the golf course itself as to, the costs to make improvements that they had not planned for, that they had not really apparently assessed, right? And the second was more about really first it was a trip around the golf course. They took us around, showed us the places where they thought that changes needed to be made, right? And then talked a little bit more about the different aspects of the changes, such as environmental, stormwater, those kinds of things. And then the third meeting is where we came to these different options. It was a pretty detailed presentation. I think I sent it to the board, and maybe we can post it on the website as well, because none of us were really sworn to any kind of confidentiality. I think this is a public document. So that actually provides a lot of detail on option 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, from their perspective, I have a bunch of, comments around that, right? We've talked about the detail itself, and you can look at the detail once we post it. Reston is a 2 golf course community, and Hidden Creek is one of them. The master plan says that. RA has said that. So Wheelock walks into this knowing fully well. Obviously, they are a pretty sophisticated investor, right? So they bought into this. And now they are saying that it's not viable as a golf course, and they are finding that it's going to cost a lot of money to make the changes, make the improvements. And given that they paid, 4 times what they paid for a golf course to buy Charter Oaks? I think approximately four times. That's what they paid. And they're probably going to spend a lot more. So $14 million is not a lot of money. So clearly they walked into this, they bought this property. They are, Wheelock is a pretty sophisticated investor. If you look at their portfolio, it's very, very large, right? This is something they've been doing. So being a sophisticated investor, I would have thought that they would do really strong, detailed due diligence on the property, which includes, what are the capital investments that are going to be required, whether it's a clubhouse. Clubhouse is pretty basic, right? Lots of other changes, green complexes. I would have thought that they would have done some basic work, and typically I do mergers, acquisitions, a lot of that, right? So you do those kinds of analysis, a lot of detailed analysis. There's negotiation around that, and the price ultimately reflects that. Because if you want to, negotiate your price, you're going to take off these kinds of costs or take that into account from a return perspective. But now they are, of course, saying that we didn't do that. All these requirements were pretty unexpected, and so we have this viability issue, right? Which I don't buy into, given their background, right? I really believe that there are lots of viable models for the golf course to work. I mean, all they have to do is just go to the south course, right? It's a public course. Reston National finding a tee time is extremely challenging, right? Weekends, even during weekdays when the season is, when we have an active season. And it's not like it's cheap. It's not like Algonquian. It's not like, some of the other municipal courses. So you have, from an affordability standpoint, as a public course, Reston National clearly makes money. It's really full, right? So I think just looking at that, just a couple of miles away, I think there are viable models available. We have not looked at any of those kinds of options. They've not been put on the table so far. I have asked to see the analysis that leads them to the conclusion that it's not viable. So far, I've not seen it. I think we need to hold their feet to the fire and look at those kinds of things before any of these really makes any kind of progress. That's what I have. Any questions? Happy to respond.
Yeah. So at that stage, do we have any questions for Sherry or Sridhar, Kathy?
So has the county weighed in on this at all, on this course?
One of the meetings, Bill Bowie was there.
No, Bill Bowie is talking about viability of golf courses. He was talking about the courses that they have. He was speaking from an FCPA perspective. Yeah. The county is, so far the master plan is very clear, and that's the county statement.
Well, I mean, I know that they spoke specifically to the other golf course. Have we gotten anything from
We
them?
spoke about 2 golf courses. So earlier this week, we had a meeting with, not this week, last week, on Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, I was
As
doing
part
that.
of the small group meetings that we had with the county. And this was a question that came up with the Planning and Zoning, Director of Planning and Zoning, Fred Selden, and Fred very clearly said Reston is a 2 golf course community, and that's what the master plan says.
So has anybody talked about how you go about changing the master plan? Do they have to wait the 5 years to change the comp plan, like what's going on in TSA?
They haven't spoken about any of that in our focus groups, if that's what you're asking.
So I'm going to ask one thing, and then we'll go to Julie. So based upon what you've seen, and I think there's another focus group meeting coming up, and you and
August 14th, yeah.
Sridhar and Larry will be in attendance for us as our representatives. Is there anything you want to see or you think we need to do that changing on how we've been interacting there, knowing that we're inviting Wheelock and Rescue Reston to come and present themselves at our September board? Are we in good shape in the trajectory we're on?
I think we are. I
Okay.
think I've been to all the meetings, and so I can, I spent some time with the regional project manager. We've spent time with the main principal, Dan Green as well, Dan Green, right? I think that's his name. So I did, a couple of months back, when the question was asked of me, I did say that once we've gone through all the focus meetings, maybe it makes sense for you to come and address the public and the board, which is exactly what we've decided in this meeting as well. I know they wanted to come. Right now, we ask questions, clarifying questions, we make some comments during the meetings, but we are still trying to see what is it that they're going to present to us. So last meeting was the first time Wheelock actually presented some options based upon what they think will work and based on some comments from the focus group members. So we really have to still see how this is going to evolve, and the September meeting is really the key one, when they should really have, substantial, September, tomorrow, no, sorry, August we don't have a meeting.
Focus.
I think they meant you'll have your focus group, and then they'll present what the findings were, we hope, in September to us, which is what we'd love to see, yeah.
So that's when we have to wait till then, and it's probably a good
Okay,
thing.
that's a good trajectory, so, and Julie, you had,
Yes, I know this was a discussion item, but I would like to make a motion, and Kathy, you kind of set me up for this. But back in 2016, when we were dealing with Reston National and the golf course and working with the county, there were prescribed procedures and steps, processes that anyone who wishes to change the status or zoning of a property, and in this case it was the golf course, had to follow a certain process. What I would like to know, because I think it's been enough time that it would be good for us in the September meeting to have RA staff research the steps, the processes that Wheelock or any owner of a golf course, the 2 golf courses, would currently have to follow with the county to alter the use and zoning of said properties. I would ask that RA staff, and I'll give this to you in writing, Tony, that RA staff confirm that the process for Wheelock would not differ from what Northwest found that it had to follow for the South Course. I would ask that we have a review of the differences that might be germane to the parcels of land involved, because there were some nuances in the Reston, I always call it Reston South. I've been here too
it's
long.
okay.
Yeah.
We got it.
Even though I live on it, so I think that would be a good piece of information to know if there's any.
Is that a motion?
This is all a motion, yes. And finally, I move that the RA staff to return to our September board meeting and present to all of us this information to the board and to our community.
I'll second.
I'm going to, if it's all right, pare it back at a high level. You can give the details to Tony, but what I think I heard, and you can weigh me in if I go wrong, that the motion is to direct RA staff to investigate for the board and present back to the board in September any legislative and planning and zoning type of steps it would take the owners of Hidden Creek to change the current status. For example, make a comp plan amendment or a zoning change, their application, those types of things, just so we would understand the process. And I'm parroting that back. I think that's the motion. I hear a second. Is there any discussion on that?
I would just say that was really long.
I know. I'll try to make it shorter.
No, but I don't care to know that level of detail. High level, kind of what you just said, the big chunks of the process. It just sounded like a whole lot of detail in that I don't know if we as a board need to know all of that. But if Kelsey could come up and give us well, this piece has to happen, and then this would happen, and, the top 5 steps.
Mm-hmm.
But we should also, Kelsey and her team always come back and tell us when things are happening, which I think she's getting ready to do in a minute.
Right.
So we would be alerted right away if an application or a
Right,
has been made.
and that would be part of what we would
Yeah.
be.
So yes, I agree with all that, as long as that doesn't turn into an hour-and-a-half presentation, then yeah.
Yeah, I don't want an hour and a half presentation,
No.
but I am coming in very new to this, and, my knowledge of the other golf course is what I read in the papers and people I talk to, so I'd like to know as much as whether or not somebody speaks the whole thing as opposed to a written statement.
Right.
I just want to be,
I think we can get an overview presented to us, but I think this level of detail is probably information that we would need to have to understand.
Sridhar?
I'm not sure we need it at this time. I think it's a little too early. I don't want, I'm a little leery about having a discussion about what can be done to change it at this stage. I think that's just way too early. We have to see where this is going to go.
We don't want to give Wheelock the instructions.
I don't want to
already
give them
know.
how to do
I think
it.
they
I don't
already
want to
know.
play it to be discussed. And
they know.
They know.
my preference is, I know, they've done the work, so
Well, we should
let
know.
them do it. I prefer that not to be discussed in public at this stage. I think we have a position, we have a resolution, and the master plan says what it says, and I think we need to see where this is going to go before we even start talking about what needs to get done to change it. Absolutely. I am completely.
And maybe not,
Maybe, if it's all right, Ben had his hand up.
Yeah, so I see where, Julie, where your mind is when you're thinking about this, but I agree with what Sridhar said. This is what I was thinking as well, that we kind of have to think a little more strategically, and to have the staff do the work and present it in a public session would be like laying out a little bit of the chess moves, in my opinion. I'm sure they're watching this session, they'll watch our September session, and without knowing the details, I can say that something like this could be doing some of the homework for them. Now, I would support doing what you just asked for, but perhaps in a close, I won't call it an executive session because it's not something worthy or something defined as what would happen in an executive session. But we could all meet with perhaps Kelsey, and that could just be something that they could explain to us. This is what I'm thinking about. That's how I'm thinking.
Okay, thanks. Any other points, Julie?
I differ with you both because they have lawyers. They already know the process. The fact is that most of our community does not know the process. So we're not giving away any strategic information to Wheelock or to anyone else. But I think it's very important that we understand what the steps would have to be. I'm not recommending that they be taken. I'm just saying I would like to make sure that we understand where we have been successful thus far on Reston South, that we understand if that same process, those same steps, that same information needs to be considered as part of our strategic steps to position ourselves to defend our open space. So I guess I would differ. I'm not suggesting that we have to have an hour long, but I am suggesting that this is information that is important for us to have. And whether or not Kelsey presents it, I don't have any issue who presents it. I just think at a high level, we need to have this information known to ourselves and our community.
Kathy, you had your hand up.
I understand what you're saying, but I just don't think we would be giving away any state secrets. And in fact, if I recall, Northwestern was told very explicitly, if you want to do whatever it is you want to do, you must do certain things through the county. And those are the things that I do not know what they are, and I would like to know.
So, Sridhar, you have.
Again, Wheelock is very sophisticated, so I have no doubt at all that they have enough resources to find out what they need to. I just think that it's very early to be discussing in front of the public and having a conversation about what are the ways in which it can be changed. I don't think that's the right thing to do at this stage. We don't even know where the plans are going to go, so I would
Sherry?
hold back.
I just think that, not that it's a bad discussion to have, I agree though, not at the same meeting that Wheelock is presenting, do we now lay out all the things to show them all, here's all the things you need. I mean, it's sort of like laying out the red card. I just think the timing is off. I don't think it would be done in September.
I'll take a friendly amendment
Maybe
till
it's
October.
Pushed off some number of months until we're ready. Because we'll only be having our first talk about it. We as a board won't have even talked about it yet. I think all that information is, you can find it. It's, Fairfax County. I know I went through it all when Tall Oaks was being developed. I learned it on my own. I learned it the hard way. I'm not saying we need to do that. It's nice if it's presented. Kelsey might already have a presentation that she can just email to us and give us all the high-level steps. I don't know. But I agree. I'm not sure that I think it's too soon.
Okay, Ben?
Would you accept a friendly amendment that Larry Butler, Kelsey, Stefan, got it right, and I don't know if John McBride needs to be involved, but that we are able to consult with them and together come up with what will be the best next step to do. I don't know if that's a motion, but for us to have a closed meeting with the land use team and see what would be the best next step.
I don't think that has anything to do with my motion.
Over to our to our general counsel who has his hand up.
You
Sorry.
could not have a closed meeting. It would have to be an executive session, and such could be done in the fact that you're consulting with counsel, which is permitted under POA, but it would have to be an executive session at a regular board meeting or at a special meeting.
It sounds like, two really good points. I think we need to educate ourselves, as Julie described, so that we understand if we see these steps starting to be taken, that we're aware of them, we know what's going on, that we're ready to react to them in whatever way we want to react to them. I also understand the points of, is it the right timing, laying out, roadmap steps for, a company. Again, as you said, Sridhar, I'm sure they have a dozen lawyers who are thinking through this anyway, and they're probably several steps ahead on what they have to. Is it a comp plan amendment? Is it, a zoning change? So I guess I understand both points, and I'm trying to figure out how we can find somebody to do this.
Mr. President?
Do this. Can I remove the?
John, we're going to have Julie say one thing, and then we'll go right to you, John.
If I remove from my motion that we have a formal presentation at the September board meeting, would anyone have an objection to asking RA staff to research and be able to speak to us as to the process that must be taken, should there be any changes to a property? I mean, that's essentially all I'm saying is remove
Sounds good to me.
You take out the timing.
the timing.
Okay, that makes sense, and I'm going to let John, did you hear what Julie just said?
I did indeed.
Okay, and let's let John.
I would like to elaborate on that suggestion by Julie and suggest a concrete date when staff might have a conversation with the board in executive session. Namely, if we carve out time on our August 20th fiscal meeting, that would give us the information prior to the BOC meeting in September.
No.
I'm seeing, you can't see it, but I'm seeing a lot of head shaking negatively, Mr. Moody.
That was a friendly amendment. I do not accept it.
I think the timing, general consensus is a little too early for that in August.
But I would welcome a second to my motion.
I think I've heard a second to Kathy over there. So we've changed.
Deferring till October, is it basically?
So we've amended.
No date. All it is ask RA to.
Directing staff to do the research so that we as a
Have the
board
information.
can be educated on the steps necessary it would take if the property owner of Hidden Creek wanted to change the current status of that golf course. That's
Essentially it.
that
any property owner
Any-
trying to do anything to the comp plan.
Right.
Yeah, not specifically.
I think we're talking about that golf course, though, at the moment, what it would take.
Well, that would be the
She's talking
example.
in she's talking general.
Just talking in general, because it could affect the other golf course in the
Right.
same manner.
It could,
But I
it
think
was
the
St.
different-
John's Woods. It was,
It
it
could
was
affect
everything that we've talked
Hunter's
about in the
Woods.
past. Yeah.
Shopping center.
All Oaks coming back up
Yeah.
on the docket.
And how and when would this be shared with the board?
We don't know, John. At some later date.
Okay.
I'm,
What is your concern, Sridhar?
I think it is too early to have that discussion in public. Absolutely, yes. I think it's,
But I think.
they haven't
We
even
took the
presented
public
to
part
us.
out.
So,
I mean, yeah, but the timing is moved. But the concern here is, they have not even come to us beyond this. You know, we
Right.
don't know where it's going. We don't know,
But you do
based
know
on the
where it's going.
research that they are doing right now, what they're gonna come up with after the fourth meeting and in September. So, the problem with that, you know, we have a discussion in public, you know, people say things, you know, they
I
communicate
interrupt you for a
certain things
second?
to the public.
if I could interrupt you, I think what both Julia said and when Andy repeated, he said to direct staff to do the research to come back to the board. Just to let you know. So that's the motion right now, is to come back to the board,
But how?
to the board.
No,
Not
but
to
how?
be presented at a board meeting, is that what you're saying? Just to
That-
communicate the
that's
information
question,
to
right?
us?
When do they present it? When does it get discussed? Does it get distributed? You know? So we don't have the form as yet, form of distribution or communication back to the board.
Can we leave that
Um,
open-ended for now and decide that later?
Why not, if I might make a suggestion?
please do.
Why
We're
not
sort of in a
simply ask
quagmire here.
that a motion to have the staff do the research,
That's what I
Period.
have.
That's what she has.
and then
That's
we
what I
can
have.
figure out, once the research is done, the best form to present it. If it's going to be a lot of legal strategy, then such would be presented in executive session, or a legal opinion which would be provided under attorney-client privilege to the board. If it's more of a high level, like, you know, they need to petition, here's how you do a petition to change zoning, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that may not necessarily be something that shouldn't be presented as just a purely informational session.
Sure.
So have the staff do it. I can work with Kelsey and Larry and John McBride and figure out the best format for the board to digest it. So just a simple motion, please research this. And it doesn't necessarily even need to be a motion at this point.
Please research this. All right.
That's, I think, what I basically have. Yeah.
Yes.
Chelsea, please research this.
Yeah.
She probably could stood up here right now
Thank
and
you.
just tell us the steps.
Is
She
that-
probably
it
knows
does
the
not
steps.
All
need
right,
to be a motion?
when we direct staff, do we need to do a motion for this, or are we just directing staff?
Under the current authority matrix that hasn't been amended, such a request would go through the CEO. I know the CEO, I think he would take such a request very seriously, and
Larry, if you're watching, please ask staff to research this.
All right.
and I think we can get
Are
it
we
done.
voting- Are we voting on a motion, or are
Well,
we
there is a
withdrawing the vote?
motion on the floor that has been seconded. A vote is necessary unless such motion is withdrawn.
Would it please the board if I withdrew my motion?
I think based upon what I heard from Tony, I think it makes sense at this
Then
stage
I will
hearing to
withdraw my
direct.
motion, as long as there is a direction to the CEO to research.
Perfect.
That's your action.
Yes.
Another
So I will work with Larry to ask him to do this research so that it's ready to present to the board in whatever forum, in whatever time frame makes the most sense,
That's clear.
so that we are ready to use that information.
Perfect.
Perfect.
All right, thank you, and a good conversation. I didn't think about some of the things that went around the table on this, so I appreciate your time and effort to do this and have this conversation, because I want to be ready, you know, to deal with whatever is presented in September.
If I
Yeah,
If I can add one thing to what Kathy brought up about what the county has said with respect to this, I think this is good, that the step that Julie just brought up about asking the staff to do the research, because in the February letter, I believe it was in February, when the county wrote us a response letter where they were assertive about the street that's going to go through the golf course. And by doing that, they are in alignment with, not with option one, I believe, because we've talked about there's no 14 or 15 hole golf course. So that assists the plan of what we are seeing here in those other options. So I feel that what we have to deal with is some sort of a multi-dimensional of a struggle. And I think the research that we do, we've done a lot of it. I'm sure we've all spoken to it, but I think we can revitalize and see how we need to approach that.
I would like facts versus opinions.
And maybe we have to do another one.
Yeah.
Enforcing our
Reminding them
resolution
to read the
6.
first
Yes.
letter.
And reinforcing resolution 6 that we've already put out.
Right, yeah.
And we also have a media alert, right? Basically from Kathy Hudgens in April 2017, where she specifically addresses the golf course. This is with reference to the South Coast, of course. So, based on an interpretation by the Fairfax County Department of Planning and Zoning, right? She's stating the following: based on the previous approvals, the redevelopment of the property from a golf course with residential uses would first require an amendment to the Reston Master Plan, which is part of the Fairfax County Comprehensive Plan, as well as obtaining both development plan amendment approval and planned residential community plan approval from the Board of Supervisors. And so basically the process is clear and concise. So this was stated during the...
So again, and my point was, I realized and I remember that in talking with her at the time, I just want to make sure that all the same parcel information, everything else is the same for the North Course, or is anything different? And if anything's different, I'd rather know sooner rather than later that, oh no, there's this loophole that they don't have to do that. That's the kind of thing I'd like to learn. But no, that's an important point, that's the South Course.
Plan gets revisited in 2020, which is not too far away.
So anyway, let's call, I think we've got our point there. I'm going to work with Larry, direct him to work with Kelsey, thank you Kelsey, to do some research for us so that we're ready to say, is it exactly the same as the South Course? All the steps will be the same, or there's some nuance to it that make it different? Then we'll, better that we know it than find out at the last second and scramble. So thank you for a great discussion on that, and appreciate, Julie, you bringing that to our attention, and the other comments to get us to the point where we are. With that, I'd like to move us to item H, and now that we've used Kelsey's name thousands of times in this meeting, we actually get to meet the wonderful Kelsey at the podium.
Thank you.
So Kelsey, you're going to give us a land use update.
Yes. So as many of you know, RA in coordination with Fairfax County staff and officials and the Coalition for a Plan Reston, also known as CPR, have held a series of community work sessions based on the shared concerns of both RA and CPR about the increased development in Reston. So 3 of the 4 planned meetings have already been held at this point, and so tonight I'm going to give you a quick overview of what's happened so far and what's going to happen further down the road. Please note that at each of these meetings we have had RA representation from a few of our board directors, as well as Larry Butler, our acting CEO, has been present, and I've been present as well. So the first meeting was held on July 17th, and this meeting was focused on transportation. Fairfax County Department of Transportation and Planning and Zoning staff answered questions about the Reston network analysis methodology, as well as the list of transportation infrastructure improvement projects that came out of that analysis. So at the conclusion of the meeting, the staff agreed to provide the community with a clear and comprehensive transportation implementation and monitoring plan. So this means that they'll be providing a list of all the projects needed to serve the new development, their estimated timelines, and their projected funding sources. They also agreed to illustrate the intersection projects on a chart and map, noting the current level of service at each intersection and the projected level of service as a result of the growth in the transit station areas. And lastly, the staff also agreed to follow up with Director Mooney on additional detail from the Reston network analysis. He has several questions about the methodology, so they'll be going over that with him as well. The second meeting was held the next night on July 18th. This meeting dealt with parks, open space, and athletic facilities in the TSAs and all of Reston. Some of the key takeaways shared by the Park Authority were there are 16.7 acres of public urban park space committed from approved redevelopments in the TSAs since the adoption of the comprehensive plan, and over 50 acres if you include development applications currently in process. There's over $10 million in committed funding from proffers for athletic facilities in Reston, and the county also confirmed that all of those funds will be earmarked solely for Reston and nowhere else in the county. The county agreed that RA should be part of the discussion of field allocation and upgrades as a key stakeholder and recreation provider. And the county also emphasized the delivery of new fields should be and will be phased with development. The most recent meeting was held this last Tuesday on the 24th. This meeting dealt primarily with school or public school capacity in the future as Reston's population continues to increase. Most of the discussion focused on the challenges of projecting school needs as well as a lack in funding for the purchasing of new school properties. So currently Fairfax County Public Schools is looking to update their proffer formula currently used to collect money for schools from private developers. They're looking to follow a regional-based model, so based on the trends they've seen, versus the standardized single cross-county metric that they currently use to hopefully better plan for school financial needs in the future. They also discussed the ongoing, they also mentioned they've had ongoing discussions about what schools might look like in the future with the Planning Commission, so kind of opening their minds to maybe less traditional schools than what we know today. And a lot of that discussion is focused on co-location, and currently they're looking at co-location with parks. And finally, the last meeting is going to be held this upcoming Monday, July 20th. The topic of this meeting is the overall planning and land use, overall planning and land use issues. Yes, July 30th. 20th.
30th.
Sorry, it says 20th in my notes, excuse me. The 30th,
Yeah.
Thank you. So this is the overall planning and land use issues in Reston. So RA representatives at this meeting will be talking about the points from the letter that the RA board sent to the supervisor back in November of last year. Specifically, those include the density issues in the village centers and also the request to add the population cap back into the Reston master plan. So there's still many outstanding issues and details to address and go over with the board. I wanted to give you a very brief overview. There's a lot that went on at these meetings. So RA staff will look to return to the board after the conclusion of the full series, which will be next week, and hope to have the board and work with the board on providing a comprehensive response and follow-up to the supervisor soon. I also want to remind the board and the community that all the videos of the meetings are available on our YouTube site, and then the meeting on Monday will be live streamed and then posted online as well. Question?
Thank you, Kelsey.
Questions for Kelsey? Kathy?
I just want to make a comment. I've watched all three of them on YouTube, and I think the one thing that I was most impressed about was the give and take on both sides. I kind of don't like having space in between tables because it's kind of an us against them look, but everyone was just very forthcoming and frank.
Yeah.
It was good.
Good.
And so just to reiterate, Kelsey, you said that staff will be drafting a response letter that we as a board
Correct.
can send back after the conclusion of all the sessions, and then
Yes.
we'll be working with you and Larry to get that finalized and ready for after all the meetings are complete.
Exactly. Yeah, we're compiling a list of all the things that were agreed upon and then still kind of the points that need to be addressed.
And so that will be something everyone here can see before it goes.
Absolutely, yes. It would be from the board.
Right.
Are we also going to, on some of those areas, are we going to ask for some input from our advisory committees?
Yes, that's actually a great idea. We could definitely look to our advisory
In fact, John, you had talked about maybe the MTAC, so you want to talk for that about a second, John?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mr. President. I was on the transportation panel, and those on the Reston side of the table still had some unresolved concerns. And one of the major concerns are the implication of the Reston network analysis final report for the whole traffic situation, not just in the TSA area, which is the main focus of the Reston network analysis, but also on the rest of Reston. And so I would I would make a motion that the board refer the Reston traffic analysis final report to MTAC for review and recommendations to the board. I will point out one important point, that so far as I can make out from and I read it very carefully, the Reston network analysis does not talk about the impacts of the new transit station area traffic on the rest of Reston. And that is a major concern for me. And I think it should be for the board and for Reston Association. So I make that motion.
And I just zoomed over to council, and I think we can just direct, without a motion, we can direct our advisory committee to study the final report and present back to the board any recommendations they have based upon the report. So, John, I don't even think we need a motion on that. We can just do a direction of MTAC to review it and give us any thoughts and recommendations they have. Does that sound okay with you?
Sounds like it will work.
And also parks.
And the parks as well.
Environmental, if there's
Yeah.
something there.
For the Parks one, yeah, Parks and Rec for the, but I mean, the final report we're talking here is the transportation report. So,
Not that, right.
so I think this is, John's speaking specifically in transportation.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay, but no, you're right about
This is
when
the
we-
March 28 report, final report
Yes,
from,
the one that we talked about, I tried to
Yeah.
talk about the opening, where there's a summary of the implementation and also the final report from March.
Yeah, March
And I think
28,
what
yeah.
John is asking is that we request that MTAC review that report and send back to the board any concerns, recommendations they have based upon reading that, so that we can then get back to the county. So, boy. Oh, and then we have Sherry.
And this is not even going to be an action for anybody, which is great. I just want to, as you were talking, I was thinking back, gosh, when was it, last summer? When we started those meetings around the CAP and the PRC and all that started percolating, and we ended up writing a letter and taking a very hard stand, and then the very, I will say, contentious meetings between us and county on many different occasions. We had the community coming in with Dennis from RCA and others, and to get to a point where now we're having collaborative meetings with the county on specific topics is just a huge shout out to the board members that have been a part of that. I know Sridhar and John and others, and the staff, you know, Kelsey and her folks and stuff. I mean, it's just it's been a huge lift, and to see where we've come, because I was in those very contentious meetings in the beginning, and to hear what you said is watching the videos that you see this very collaborative conversation. Not that there's still not disagreements, but we've gotten kind of over a hump, it feels like, and a shout out to all those involved for getting us where we are.
Yeah, that makes good sense, and I agree. So, John, I think what we're going to finalize that is that I will take the action to work with you. I think as you're our liaison to the MTAC, right, John?
Correct.
Yes, so I will work with you, again, to direct MTAC to review the RNAG final report and to give the board any concerns or recommendations that they might have after reading that. And I'll make sure that I get an email to you and Larry as a board direction of that kind of work.
Sounds good. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. All right, anything else for Kelsey? Hearing none, we all thank you for your time and efforts. And
Stand when she enters and exits the office. We all stand and.
we should do.
Thanks, Kelsey.
She
Thank
spends a
you.
lot of evenings with us, so thank you, Kelsey, for that.
Yeah. And I would say, Mr. President, that those meetings would not have taken place without Kelsey's personal effort. So very grateful for her.
So thank you, Kelsey, for supporting Larry and team to get those meetings to happen. Thank you. And now we on to item I, capital projects, and we welcome Chris to the podium.
Very sleepy, Chris.
Yeah, my 4-month-old had me up at about 2:30, 3 o'clock this morning with a head cold, so it's been fun. Thank you, Mike,
All
for
right,
getting
so
that
do you
brought
have
up.
a PowerPoint for us? You do?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, I prepared for you guys tonight a very brief update on how we're doing in capital.
You sounded like a waiter. I
He
have prepared
did.
for you this evening.
Come on, there's
dining
rack of
session.
lamb
There's
with-
TV
Did I get the
shows.
clicker over there?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm prepared today.
Just hit, is that one? No, the other one. You just had it. Yep, that one.
Very
And the clicker by chance? Okay, starting off with the Q2 summary. So what you see before you right there are two different pie charts, one kind of showing the status of the projects we have scheduled this year. So when you exclude, thank you, when you exclude the vehicles and equipment, we have completed 12 projects. 11 projects have been completed, 12 are in progress, 4 are currently on hold, and 48 are scheduled. So when you break that out as portions of this year's budget, 0.82 million are in completed projects, 2.76 are in progress, 0.28 are on hold, and 1.5 million effectively are in scheduled projects. Hard to read. Okay, so this kind of breaks down monetarily how we did. So of the 5.7 million in this year's budget, we have executed 1.4 million at this point. In just this last quarter, we've actually done 1.1 million, so we're doing pretty well on that front. In the end, when you break down all the tabulations, we're looking at a $244,000 positive variance. And so when you break it down and compare it to 2017, the same time last year, we have executed 26% of the budget versus 18. So we're actually on an upswing and doing better than we did this time last year.
Yep.
So looking at a couple of key projects, CSF renovation. It's progressing within budget, but we're a little bit behind schedule. Rain definitely didn't help us with the roof replacement. We're actually looking at probably the second week of August to do the completion. However, the main building is complete. Staff have already moved in. We're well underway on building 2 for that office renovation and bathroom installation. So we're hoping to get everything wrapped up here around mid-August. The pictures you see right there are the 2 left ones are the original. You can see after everything was demoed and cleared out, we realized we had a lot of ceiling space available, which was nice. And then on the far right of the currently completed portions, we have the new kitchenette area and some office space that was created by moving the HVAC up into the ceiling, creating some more area for office areas.
Before you leave that one, can we ask questions during?
Sure, go ahead.
So, Sridhar, did you say we have another change order that's maybe coming
That
on
is
this
the
one?
roof that he was talking about.
That was part of
So
change
that
order
is-
4. There were some structural issues that were discovered following the demolition. A lot of the utilities at some of the roofs, such as the ventilations and fans, were never properly supported during the original construction back 30 years ago. So structural steel had to be added in order to make it safe and for the installer to even warranty it. So that's what they're doing right now, and that's part of the change order 4.
All right, thank you.
Another key project is the New Ridge Uplands White Coats. Both projects were completed on schedule and on budget. You can see it's a pretty big difference between Uplands on the left and afterwards on the right.
Wow. That's the same spot?
That's the same pool,
Wow.
a couple months apart. Another key project, Lake Throat dredging. We are complete. They're in the process now of finalizing the demobilization. We were a little bit behind schedule, unfortunately. There was an equipment failure with the dredging operator, which required us to order a part from Europe. So that delayed us a couple weeks, and then with weather, it also delayed us a little bit. We are now done, and we successfully removed 450 truckloads of material. So that's about 4,500 cubic yards. So quite a bit has been dredged out of that lake.
We filled it immediately with the rain.
Yeah.
Where does that go?
We have a disposal site out in Loudon, So that's where we
Goes
take all
from
of
here
it.
to a quarry in Loudon.
Pardon?
Has the equipment all been removed?
Nearly. They're just wrapping up some of the last few pieces. Yeah, they had the tractor trailers out just the other day getting the larger pieces out.
Okay.
It's quite a process to get all that off the
Have
lake.
the path back to.
Yes, that's our number one priority is to try to get that back open.
Yes.
Come on, here we go. Another good project is the Browns Chapel concession bathroom. We were completed on budget, but 1 week behind schedule. That was as a result of some delays by the partition vendor. And we also found a little bit of rodent and rot damage, but you can see the dramatic difference between the left image and the right image. Basically, it was a full gut job down to the studs. Another one is Lake Ann Dock. The engineering is now complete, and we're ready to submit it to the county for approvals. We are anticipating a construction delay as we are in renegotiations with the selected construction vendor. We have some updated insurance requirements that we want them to meet, and so there may be some cost adjustments to reflect that. So we're still in the process of negotiating that, and hopefully we'll have an answer for you soon. If we get everything wrapped up, we still anticipate on getting the project underway before the end of the year, and then done before spring of 19.
Is it just a redo of what we have?
Yeah, yeah. Because of the limitations we have with the historic district, it's a like-for-like replacement. Anything that you see visually would be exactly the same. We are going to be doing some modernization of the structural supports underneath, but they're not visible.
So this of course, the number there doesn't include the dredging cost underneath that. That's a separate item, right?
That is part of the same contractor. No, it's a package deal for them to do the dredging as well as the construction.
Does RA also own the stairs that go down from the plaza into the
I
water?
believe the concrete elements are actually owned by the
The condo
by
association?
the yes, and the actual dock portion is ours. Yeah.
So right now, it's like for like.
Yes. Like for like.
And your view is that the historic designation of Lake Ann allows us not to change that at all. Is that confirmed? Did I hear you right in saying that, or is that confirmed?
Yes, in order to be able to get through that process with the historic district, it needs to maintain its visual appearance right now. As well for DRB regulations, we need to maintain its exact appearance. Any modification of that would be a pretty lengthy process with the historic district regulatory agency. So right now it's just a like-for-like replacement.
I know a number of residents have asked about whether we make that more functional, a more functional dock. I don't know, on pontoons rising and falling so that when the lake, water falls, that, it's not like using a pole vault to get onto the dock, things like that for when they're boating, to make it more accessible for people to be on wider portions, things like that. Has this board talked through that at all? And
Yeah,
we have a shaking head yes and a shaking head no.
I have not, but you may.
We had discussed, there was an interest by the Lake Ann commercial, whatever that.
Plaza Association, I think.
Plaza.
Retailers, maybe.
Who had done a charrette where they proposed an alternate look to the dock, but it was not something that the board at the time wanted to take up, mostly because there were increased costs that we didn't see that we had any reason or justification for going there with that. I do remember a discussion about the ability for the
rising and falling.
And I thought that we had some answer to that.
We already have a
issue.
floating dock portion that allows us to launch boats from. It's a very small portion of the
Right.
dock structure, but
Yeah.
it's there.
But the decision was made by, I guess it was in 2017, 2016, that we would simply do like for like, that at that time made the most sense for us financially to do that.
And just for the record, we had as many community residents opposed to the idea of adding anything to this as
Right.
we did for it. Because the additional people it would bring in, so, and it was very, very costly.
Yes.
And we
Yeah.
just can't afford it. Not today.
Right.
So yes, the board has taken that up.
Like for like was the
Like
answer.
for like.
Right.
Okay.
Now, more modernized understructure,
Right.
because I think that understructure enabled us to maybe do something different in the future if we so
Correct.
choose, because of the, I don't know if it's more robust or it's just made out of
There's
different
different
materials.
structural
or-
change. Right.
There's actually steel
make it
supports
easy.
underneath
Right.
it versus the wooden. So it's
Yeah.
wooden and generally more structurally sound. I'm not entirely sure if there's any opportunities for future upgrades to be done to it, but it's definitely going to be
But I think it
a
was
higher
gonna-
load rating than it was before.
It was more like attaching like a pier to
Right,
that dock.
that we could support,
That would support it.
There's probably other options, but we have not.
like expanding
No,
the.
not
the-
us, no, not on you guys.
Right, expanding the size of that floating dock or something like that, but it
Something like a
wasn't.
Ferris wheel.
If there are benches there, are those being replaced also?
Those, the ones that are on the dock itself are ours. I'm not entirely sure if those ones you see right in front of you are,
Those would be larger, I
they
think.
might be, I'm not quite sure, but the ones that are on the actual dock would be definitely at least refurbished, if anything.
Thank you, Chris.
Maybe pier kind of treatment, right?
Chris, what are the new insurance requirements that have delayed construction?
Increase in the accessibility, I'm sorry, the excess liabilities. There's an increase in that, and then builder's risk insurance. So a couple details, just because it is a very high hazard situation, we wanted to increase our coverages to protect the association. Okay, so jumping to an outlook on quarter three, so a handful of projects we're looking at getting kicked off here in the near future. Asphalt paving of all our pathways, along with some concrete repairs to curbs and sidewalks, replacement of 2 of our footbridges, spillway maintenance, and the Walker Nature Center accessibility project, which, reminder, is a partnership with Friends of Reston for the funding. So we're planning on doing about 1.5 miles of trails throughout Reston. There'll be drainage improvements as well as tree and shrub clearing, and gutters and sidewalks will be repaired as we go along.
Oh, what was that, a golf course?
The Walker Nature Center access project. So the line you see in red basically entails the area that would be paved. Right now it's a gravel lot, so by paving it, it'll be more accessible for wheelchair access. It's also safer during the winter because we can properly plow it. Right now we just sort of push the snow out of the way, and there's still a lot of ice in the ground, so staff still have to access that facility year-round. So it'll definitely be an improvement overall. We'll be adding 2 new access trails. One will be heading over towards the nature walk that's off to the right there, and then there'll be a new access path to Glade Drive from the bottom, because there's already sort of a goat path there. So we'll be actually connecting those 2 properly with asphalt paths. Some lighting will be added. There'll be 2 new light poles put right there at the entrance to allow people entering and exiting the facility to see pedestrians as they walk along the path right now, because it's completely pitch black at night. So this will definitely, improve the safety on that end.
Before you finish with that one, so asphalt for the parking lot, again at Walker Nature Center, it seems like, some other form of, where water, instead of water runoff, we're having, water being captured there on site, things like that. For the Walker Nature Center seems intuitively,
It does
for
seem
someone who's not
intuitively,
talked about this before,
Yeah.
seen this, I mean, it seemed
Yeah.
intuitively, asphalting that didn't make sense to my brain, but
Well,
tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure. So according to the Fairfax County Code, basically gravel becomes compacted over time as effectively impermeable surface, so it's really no different than asphalt.
But I've seen other types of
Yes.
places that have the different kind of bricks and things that allow it to do it. Do we think through any of that stuff, or too
Yeah.
expensive, or?
I mean, typically a lot of those permeable surfaces, there's a lot of added maintenance, and there's also, they wear down a lot faster, but really what we're doing is, what's currently there is impermeable. And to make it not so would require us all to dig all this concrete treated.
Reverse
concrete
engineering.
So
Kind of broke our heart.
we're not really, making it
been down
any
this
worse
path
than it
before.
already is,
Well,
kind of
sorry.
situation.
But it also
Yeah,
makes,
over there.
Yeah.
makes it a
Going
bit
over there.
safer for the ADA accessibility.
Yes, that's what it is, it's the ADU.
No, a lot of great reasons that asphalt is a useful thing. Again, it's just the irony slaps you in the face that at the Walker Nature Center, we're going to put asphalt at it. But,
Where's
I
the
mean,
new
that's-
path from South Lakes?
So the one, that little leg down to the right there? I'm sorry, not South Lakes, I'm sorry, that was a typo in the original proposal, it's Slade Drive.
Oh, okay, I'm looking at my
Anyway,
handout and
I
it
mixed
says
up
South
two
Lakes.
roads
I'm
last
going,
month.
why am
I
I?
corrected
Yeah.
it before the presentation, though.
No, it's, for a lot of great reasons, it makes sense. For a lot of other reasons, it kind of crosses one's eyes. So, but I mean, you have to come out one side, and this is the way we did, and okay,
Yeah, we did.
thank you.
We had to get past.
Asking the hard questions here, sorry.
So this is the last one we're hitting. So these are footbridges. So we have over 100 footbridges throughout Reston on our pathways. To comply with code, they all have to be at some point upgraded with a weight-bearing type structure, so they have to be able to handle vehicular loads. In the event of an emergency, they have to be able to have an ambulance drive across them.
Seriously?
Yep. So
Maybe
we,
a four-lane kind of thing.
Hence-
Right? Divided by.
So
Is
where
that part
is
of our
this?
traffic
With
analysis?
the bike path.
This
The
one,
bike path, yeah.
A bike lane.
Multimode.
Is it
Yeah.
near
I don't know where I
Chapel?
pulled that image from. I think it's somewhere over by Hunter's Woods.
Then he put
Ah.
three
We have
in
some of
my
those in
town.
colors.
Yeah.
This is one of our standard wheeler bridges with helical piers. So we do 2 of these every year.
Yep.
We have 2 this year, we'll have 2 again next year, and
This one,
eventually
number
we'll all
42.
go
Do
through
we
all
not
of
call them footbridges anymore? Do we call them car bridges?
I think going along the lines of what
Other
Andy
byways.
said, shouldn't an ambulance not go on a footbridge? Anything without beach being.
That's why we have golf carts.
That's crazy.
But you have to be able to handle vehicular loads in the case
Wow.
of emergency. If you have to get an ambulance back there to do emergency response, they have to be able to drive on it. We drive our trucks on it as well, so that's also a
Skinny
benefit to
trucks.
us. You could drive basically a backhoe across that if you need to.
How long do they last?
I believe they're on a 30-year cycle, off the top of my head. So they last a pretty long time once they're done.
Yeah, because we do 2 a year, basically. If I remember the numbers, this might be number 42 and 43, or,
Yeah, we're in the middle right now, 79, 80, and 81.
there we go.
So,
Those
thank you,
numbers.
Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Anything more from presentation-wise?
Not until executive session for contract.
Okay, so do we have any questions? We peppered you with questions throughout. Any other further questions for Chris before we let him off the podium?
I'll be right back later, so it's okay. We're getting something.
All right, hearing none, thank you so much, Chris. Again, keep driving, small carry forward, small,
We're aiming for
small.
that.
You get all these projects done this year, okay?
Trying my best.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
You're doing a great job, Chris.
Thank you.
Nice job.
All right, with that, we're on to executive session, so
Then
Can I-
got,
Should we take a short break
the new
before then?
big
The
J.
2 people.
Be the new
that, but I mean, that's within the executive
Oh, did that
session.
fall in
That's
there,
within the executive session.
People who wish-
So, and they'll be speaking in our first part of our executive
Oh, in
session,
the-
because it's about a specific piece of
Do you
property.
need a motion to go into?
So we need a motion to get into executive session, so moved by
Could we
Kathy.
have a bio break?
Bio break,
So
yeah,
we're gonna
just
do
couple of minutes and
how about
then-
if we do a 5-minute bio break, and then we will adjourn into executive session, as long as I get a second to Kathy's motion to go into it.
Second.
So Julie is seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay.
All right, good.
All right, thank you,
Switch off the
John. So we're gonna
microphones.
take a 5 we are back out of executive session. The first thing we are going to do is have Director Mooney read a cleansing motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Reston Association Board of Directors certifies to the best of each member's knowledge that only those matters appropriate for executive session of a personnel, contractual, or legal nature were heard, discussed, or considered by the board during the executive session.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Hearing none, that passes. Thank you very much, John, for leading us through that. We have several other motions to approve that were discussed in executive session. The first one is the matter of 1136 Round Pebble Lane.
Yes, I move to approve the report of the legal committee and authorize actions to be taken on the case reviewed during its meeting of July 11th, 2018, namely regarding the property at 1136 Round Pebble Lane.
That was longer than what the motion was. Tony, you're looking at me queriedly.
Should I just
I believe the motion was
just end it at, okay. Move to approve the report of the legal committee and authorize actions to be taken on the case reviewed during its meeting of July 11th.
Shorter.
The legal committee.
That's the motion.
That is not the motion.
Okay,
You're looking.
never mind. Somebody who got
Move
got
to
it in their
adopt the
Dropbox
decision
needs
of the
to do
legal
this.
committee.
Second.
All right, so there we go. We've rejigged this. So in the matter of 1136 Round Pebble Lane, let's just make sure. Eric, could you please read the motion?
Yes. I move to adopt the decision of the legal committee.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you.
I abstain.
Okay, we have one abstention on the Round Pebble Lane. John Mooney. In the matter of 11901 Triple Crown Road, we have a motion.
Mr. President, I move to refer the matter back to the Covenants Committee to request additional information and for reconsideration.
Second.
And to determine what specific covenants the plats are alleging the Berries are in violation of, determine if the Covenants Committee has jurisdiction to hear any or all of the specific violations, and to determine if the Berries have compelling factual evidence that refutes the expert report presented by the plats.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Nay. Nay, one nay. Any abstentions? Two abstentions.
Okay.
Did you get that recorded, Tony?
Kathy and Karen abstained.
Kathy and Carrie abstained. Ben was a nay. I think everyone else was a yay. Okay?
Okay.
All right, the next one, in the matter of our capital decisions.
Yep. Move to approve the contracts that were discussed during executive session.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? That one passes unanimously. All
There
right.
you go.
And finally, we have one more motion.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say nay. We are adjourned.
There
Thank
being
you.
none.
And thank you,
Thank you,
Stefan, for
John.